Oh, if I touch you on the shoulder, it simply means your head's creeping in.
Yes, okay.
Running?
Yes. 28, take 1. Ruth, how did you meet Amon, first of all? How did you meet Amon when first?
And I was working in Krakow with
As a Troy handler, weren't you?
no. It was called Hauptgruppe Gewerbliche Wirtschaft. But I left there and went to another place to work. And the girl who came after me was always sick and didn't work with her. So one day, it was about 8 weeks or 3 weeks after I was no more there, they called me, made a phone call and asked me if I had some time for them. They had to make some business with that Hauptsturmführer Goeth, and they had to come out. And the boss didn't want to go alone, you see. He wanted a girl with him, and so we wanted it. He didn't make it so formal. And well, so I did him the favor and said, all right, I'll have time for you, and I would go with you there. And that was the first time I went out there, and I met him. And well, he was a very good-looking man, and I flirted with him, not just for the business we had, but because, well, I liked him. And later on, it was a big feast. Some other people came, and it was very late when we left there. And then I didn't hear anything. At least we had our business. He promised to give us the people we needed. And after 3 weeks or 14 days or so, I guess in the meantime he was somehow away in some business affairs. He made a phone call to me, and so it started.
Eventually you moved into the house with him.
Yeah.
What was the house like that you lived in Plaszow?
I had a small flat, like here, 2 rooms and a kitchen, but it didn't take 2 or 3 days. I was out there.
What was the house like in Plaszow that you lived in the camp? Well, how was that house?
I lived in Plaszow.
Yeah. The house that you lived with Commandant Goeth, what kind of house was that?
It was a little villa. You know what it means? Downstairs, a big living room and sleeping room, and upstairs some guest room and a sport room and something. Not any too big. Dinner room.
What was the sport room? What?
Oh, it was just our things for riding and what do you call it?
A desk?
Desk for playing tisch tennis and so on.
Was Amon fond of table tennis?
No, we never did. It was just some room where all these things were standing. Nobody used it.
How was the house decorated? What was the furniture like?
Oh, furniture. I guess partly of the furnitures were made in Werkstätten. Werkstätten, you know?
In the workshop.
Workshop, which the Jews had there.
Do you think it had good taste?
Yeah. It was not very luxury, you see. No. It was a nice living room with big chairs and a piano and things like that. Kamin. I don't know what you call it. Where is your interpreter?
Oh, a chimney, yes. A fire, there would be a fire.
Yeah.
There used to be quite a lot of guests coming to the house.
Of course. Many people came. Partly on duty.
Other SS officers and...
Yeah.
What kind of food would be available living there in the wartime? What sort of food would you get there?
The food came. We had for all these peoples 20,000 or I don't know how much. And there, the food for us came.
What sort of food would there be for the officers and for you and for the commandant?
Normal eating.
Were there difficulties getting food during 1944 when the Russian campaign?
We bought a lot on the black market too.
Tell me, what was the daily routine as you remember it for the commandant, for Amon?
Oh, he got up in the morning and went to his office and came home for dinner. And then he went back and came home for supper.
The routine of any other person,
Oh.
in other words. Did he ever talk to you about what he did during his office hours?
Pardon?
Did he ever talk to you about what his work was, what it involved?
Sometimes.
As far as you know, what did he actually do during those working hours then?
All these people worked for tailors and Kirchner, people who works with pelzen, you understand? Furs and shoes and...
So what was Amon's job as the commandant with these people? What did he do?
Organizing. You see, when he came to Krakow, it was before in Lublin, and came to Krakow to the Schindler, nicht der Hörer, der SS- und Polizeiführer.
The SS police chief Schindler.
Yeah.
He worked for Schindler.
He worked for Schindler. And Schindler said to him, well, I don't know what to do with you. I can give you a job in an office here. That was not his... He was not a guy who liked to sit behind a desk and make office work. Or I can give the job out there. There was a ghetto, and this ghetto sollte aufgelöst werden.
Was demolished.
Yeah, and should become a camp. And so he had to organize all these things, build these barracks, and it was very difficult to get all these things. You see, you needed for all that some Bezugsscheine, we called it.
Requisitions, maybe.
Yeah. And so you didn't get these things, and you had to
We're just going to
deal.
stop for a second. We're just going to change the rough turn.
Yes.
Yeah. 29, take one. Frau Goeth, you were telling me of some of the problems that Amon had at the beginning.
Well, because he had no material, and so he had to get in contact with many people to get it privately, you see. And then all these invitations, have a drink and have a good time, and then they were in a good mood, and so all right, you can have the wood and electric cables and whatever was wanted and needed. And so it was a hard job anyway. Before, he didn't have anything to do with Jews. It was just this camp in Krakow.
What was the atmosphere like for you? You were a young woman living inside a labor camp. How was it?
You see, I always had the feeling that all this was wrong, but I couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything against it. I didn't make these Gesetze, what do you call it, these laws, you see. I didn't make, and sometimes in every partnership there are crises and so. And then sometimes I said, I go. I don't want to see it any longer or so. And then both of the maids I had, they came and were asking, please stay with us. Stay with us. You are always helping, and what are we going to do without you? It was not the reason why I stayed. Well,
What was your feeling for Amon?
I loved him. As I told you, he was a very good-looking man, and he had everybody liked him, all his friends. He had charm and was helpful, and
But you were aware, because your Jewish maids told you, that sometimes he wasn't using his charm on the prisoners.
no, really not.
How was he with prisoners?
Oh, he had some prisoners who he liked. Prisoners who worked directly with him, and so, and had a good verhältnis to, you know what I mean?
Relationship.
Good relationship to them. And all these others, my goodness, 20,000 people who don't know anybody, and everybody.
Let's move on for a moment and talk about Schindler. What was the impression that Schindler gave when you first met him? What kind of man did he appear to be?
Oh, he was a very nice man. He had a certain charm too. He needed Jews, and he had an own camp and was nice to the prisoners because everybody wanted to go to Schindler. I told you so.
Why did everyone want to go to Schindler?
Pardon? It was his idea, the more I do for the people, the more they do for me. You see?
Why do you think so many people wanted to go to Schindler and away from Amon's camp?
It was the best place for them. They had the most freedom there. Schindler, well, he closed his eyes, and as long as you work, everything is all right.
What would happen at Schindler's camp if you didn't work?
Pardon?
You said if he closed his eyes. If you worked, it was fine. You could do anything else. What happened at Schindler's camp if you didn't work?
If you didn't work, he always worked.
No, not Schindler, but the Jews. If they didn't work at Schindler's camp, what would happen to them, do you think?
Oh, no. He expected them to work. The work had to be done.
How did Amon think of Schindler? What was his...
They were very good friends.
Could you say that again for me? Amon was... Because we're eventually going to cut my questions out. So if you could... I'm going to ask you again what Amon thought about Schindler. And if you could say Amon and Schindler were very good friends, or something like that.
Oh. There was nothing between them. They worked hand in hand. He wanted a favor, all right.
Did Amon ever talk to you about Schindler?
No, because there wasn't anything to talk. It was a very good relation.
How did this relationship show itself?
Pardon?
How did the relationship, the friendship, show itself between the two men?
Well, Schindler came to all these official feasts, and he came. It wasn't so that if we would have had any night big feasts. No, sometimes he came for an evening or so, just for a nightcap, and we sat together for an hour or 2 hours and talked about political things, and not always about prisoners and camps. The camp, it was there and nobody could do anything against it.
When you talked about politics, Amon and Schindler and yourself, what was said?
And sometimes we heard London, BBC and so on.
You say, sorry to stop you, you're saying that Amon listened to the BBC?
Yeah.
An SS camp commander?
Yeah. We did it.
What did you talk about after you heard the BBC broadcasts?
Well, they were not convinced that we would be the big seeker. They had their doubts when they heard it, and so on. They believed it.
Did Schindler give the impression, because you moved to Plaszow in 1943, when the war was still going quite favorably with Germany, did you get the sense that Schindler was a good Nazi?
We all were good Nazis in this sense. We couldn't be anything else.
I don't.
We had to believe in all these things. What could we have done? Nothing. Couldn't have do anything against it.
Johnny?
Yes. Yes.
30, take one.
Yes.
Was Oskar Schindler a frequent visitor to Plaszow?
Oh yeah.
What did he come to the camp for?
Just for talking. It was not always business. My goodness.
Did he bring
To
gifts?
have a drink and to talk.
Did he ever bring gifts with him?
No.
I've heard that he was one of the main suppliers of brandy and drink for the parties.
No. I don't think so.